Righty guys, welcome back to another video. Thank you again for all the support for the Wednesday videos, which we do upload that are a little more extended, obviously, than our reels. So really appreciate the support. Just remember to keep subscribing to us, liking the video, just so we can help grow the channel and obviously spread some good advice to people that may need it. So today we're going over deadlifting and learning how to actually pull the slack through the bar. So the biggest thing that we see, whether it be in our own clients or on social media or people who just come into the gym to train generally, is that when they go to pull the slack out of the bar, they try to do it instantaneously as opposed to gradually. So before we get started in the video, we need to go over examples of what a bad slack pull looks like and what a good slack pull looks like. So in the first example, we're going to be looking at someone who doesn't pull an adequate amount of slack through the barbell. What you'll see is most of the time, they're going to be a lifter who grips and rips the bar, and you'll see that all of a sudden the starting position off the floor is really compromised, where their back is going to most likely be rounding and the barbell is going to really take a long time to come off the floor. This is going to be something that's going to increase the chance of injury, and it's most likely going to inhibit the lifter's ability to lock out that deadlift when they get to the end finishing position. Here's another example of a good amount of slack pull. You'll see that the tension through the bar is made gradually, and we can slow this right down to show exactly what the barbell is doing as the lifter is wedging into position. It's important to know that the slack pull really communicates well with a wedge, and that's what this video is going to teach you guys on how to do it in a way that's hopefully going to be communicated really well for you to understand. All right, so I'm going to draw up a graph just to explain how the tension through the bar is not supposed to look. So as you can see, as my y-axis, we have force production, and then as my x-axis, we have time. Okay, so this is going to be in completion of when the bar comes off the floor. Okay, so what we tend to see with people who cannot pull enough adequate tension through the bar or pull enough slack through the bar is that all of a sudden, right at the start, they have this massive amount of force production that goes through the barbell, where it's almost at their top end. Okay. The bar hasn't left the ground yet in regards to the reference of time. And what you'll see is that when they get into the position of their wedge, the force will drop and they will get to here. And that's going to be an inadequate amount of force production through the bar because the barbell has pulled them back down towards the floor without that amount of tension that was supposed to be gradual at the start. So when the wedge has occurred here, you'll see that there is a gap where the bar returns back to less slack, and then the bar starts to come off the floor before the time you get to lockout. So this is where we're creating the error. It's among this space here. Okay? And today, hopefully you guys will learn or understand and hopefully practice in your own training on how to minimize this chance of where you're going from maximal force output to losing force output whilst you're wedging to then move the barbell up and off the ground.
Alrighty, so now I'm going to run you through how we can create a more effective slack pull so that when we commit to the wedge, it's going to create a more gradual lift off the floor and you're not going to be getting pulled out of position. So I'll start from just when you're like going down to the bar or when you're starting to apply force. And then as you can see, the line just goes linear and linear and linear until we reach lockout. So this is just a gradual exposure to creating force through the bar or through the floor so that you don't get folded in half and lose your positioning. Alrighty, so here is at about 90% where we want to create our wedge. And as you can see, the 90% that happens before that is where we create the most amount of force production. And there is more force production after the wedge so that the bar travels from the floor to lockout. But it's important to understand this gradual exposure so that you produce force off the floor before the barbell leaves the floor and you create your wedge so that you don't get issues at the lockout here.
So one thing to understand is that if you're using a deadlift bar as opposed to a power bar, the amount of force that you can produce through the bar is going to be different, okay? So for example, if you're handling, say, a load around 170, you won't really feel the bar quote unquote bend or have tension through it like a deadlift bar would with 170. So it's important to, I guess, understand there are differences when you're using different bits of equipment. The biggest difference in using a deadlift bar is that it's probably going to feel easier to get tension through that barbell. But just because it's easier doesn't necessarily mean you have to be easy on the force production, because believe it or not, a lot of people who use the deadlift bar probably are more inclined to yank it because they think that they've got tension through the bar. It's because it's obviously bending already by the time they put their hands on it. So just try and understand that even though you're using a deadlift bar, you have to be a lot more delicate in how much force you're actually producing through that barbell to then eventually get the plates to come off the floor. In contrast, a power bar is something that you have to be quite aggressive with when it comes to producing your force. But just remember, the force production has to be a slow motion and gradual to reach, like what Benny said, that 90% mark before you create your wedge to then get the bar off the floor and moving to hold a very advantageous position. So a long time ago, JP Kauke put out a really popular post on his Instagram. And he said, if you do not pull slack out of the bar will pull the slack out of you. And that's something that has stuck with me for years and years and years. And it's something that I really want to try and just, I guess, push forward when it comes to deadlifting, is that you really do have to try and make sure that when you're deadlifting, that you're pulling adequate tension through the barbell, okay? So like Benny said, about 90% of force before the bar even leaves the floor. A lot of the finishing issues or lockout issues that people have comes from the floor. And a lot of people do, for example, like block pulls or rack pulls, or I guess in some cases RDLs to finish their lockout position. But really, as long as you're getting that technique down pat with knowing how to control the bar and its behavior, that's when you can really get the most out of your deadlift position. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into, I guess, my deadlift session today. And Benny's gonna show you exactly what it looks like to have adequate tension through the bar so you can meet that lockout position.
All right, so we're in the gym. It's Aiden's primary deadlift day, and so he's gonna basically show you on one of his warm-up sets here what it looks like to apply a decent amount of tension through the bar before you wedge in and initiate the pull off the floor. So as you can see, when Aiden's reaching for the bar and his hands make contact, he makes his grip, and then you can see the bar bend slightly. That's him applying pressure. Bang. All right, so you can see a good example there was basically when Aiden started to create pressure or tension through the bar, you can see it bend slightly and it started to have a little bit of give. And that's him applying force into the floor, creating his 90% before you can see him wedge his hips towards the bar and break the floor.
Oh, that feels pretty good. But that was pretty good. That's the lightest 270s felt in a while. It's actually crazy because I just finished a block and usually my week one feels pretty fucking hard because I'm so fatigued, but that actually was quite good. So I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm showing off in front of you guys. It's all right, it's good. All right, well that wraps it up guys for this week's YouTube video. Just remember that when it comes to deadlifting, a lot of the issues and problems you'll find is just how you're actually communicating with the tension with the barbell in your body. So as long as you're accumulating gradual, smooth tension through the bar as you're setting up into your wedge, you'll find that the majority of your issues will pretty much go away. But deadlifting is a very simple lift, okay? It's all about trying to make sure that when you're deadlifting, you're just picking up the bar, but how you pick it up matters so much. So start with building more tension. Stay tuned for our next YouTube video next week, and we hope to see you then.